Hi everyone, my name is Leo and welcome to my channel. This is my first video on YouTube, so if I look a little nervous, it's because I'm freaking nervous right now. I think that this channel will be mostly about nerd stuff, because basically gaming is my only passion and I really hope to create something interesting for you all. Today I'd like to talk about some theories regarding Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, surely the two most discussed games in the recent months. And sadly, not always in a good way. I have to warn you that there will be spoiler side, so if you haven't finished the game, I suggest you to close the video right now. And with that said, let's begin. Let me start by saying that I love this game. I grew up with Pokemon, and even if I stopped playing the main games for a while, because of an evil thing called League of Legends that stole the best years of my life, I continued to stay updated and to watch gameplays to know what was happening with the franchise. So to come back to a main game with Scarlet and find out that it is an open world, that I can finally roam the region freely and that I can choose my own path was just a blast for me. This is something that in my opinion Pokemon games really lacked of, and I hope it will be canon for the future. But of course, as we all know, Scarlet and Violet are very far from perfect. I don't want to sound like a boomer, maybe I am, but the design of Pokemon seems to have gotten a lot worse over the years, with some exception. Excalibur is just awesome. And I really don't like the design of Terastallization 2. Don't get me wrong, the feature is very useful and game-changing in competitive, but it looks just horrible in my opinion. I don't know who thought that making crystal heads with evil eyes was a good idea, but for me it's not. And I know that these two little evil eyes are surely linked to the third legendary Pokemon, but it just reminds me too much of Spider-Man eyes and I cannot take them seriously. And not to mention some lazy choices, for example during the Starfire Street path that looked all the same, and of course bugs and glitches, and there are tons of them. The game is basically an unfinished product, and Game Freak just proved that they are not able to develop one game a year anymore. They just need more time or more people. But, you know, after I completed the 3 main stories and I reached the final part of the game, everything just changed for me. When I finally entered the crater of Paldea and that awesome music kicked in and I began to slowly descend this beautiful place with crystals, trees, waterfall and majestic Pokemon, and still I had a strange feeling that something really bad happened inside this crater, I was glued to the screen. And the fact that during the whole descent I was there with the friends that I made during the main stories, that, let me say this, even if they're not real, they're still my friends. I love them, I have to take care of them. And when I finally reached the bottom of the crater and I found out that Professor was dead and that there was a giant time machine that was bringing dangerous Pokemon from a distant time to the present, I was sold. If you give me Journey to the Center of the Earth vibes, Jurassic Park Pokemon and a time machine, I can forgive you for everything that you've done. Even the Slenderman glitch. And now we come to the main topic of this video, the big unsolved mystery of the crater. Of course, Paradox Pokémon. As you know, based on the version that you're playing, inside the crater you can find a bunch of prehistoric or mecha Pokemon that seems to be there just because Professor Sada and Turo created a time machine able to send Master Ball to the future or to the past, catch them and bring them back to the present. But as we know, these Pokemon were there before the time machine of Sada and Turo was built, because there are descriptions and even pictures of them in the Scarlet and Violet books that were written during the first successful expedition of Earth 200 years ago. So the question is, why did Sada and Turo had to create a time machine to bring back Pokemon from a distant past or future if these creatures were already inside the crater 200 years before? And if you are like me and you're not sleeping enough since you finished the game because you want to know the truth about these Pokemon, and before you ask me, yes, my life is pretty boring. You have surely come across a certain theory that is getting more and more attention on Reddit and on YouTube, the theory about imagination. That I do not agree with, and later I will explain you why, but I think it's still kinda interesting. According to this theory, thanks to the immense power of crystals, just being able to imagine or design something inside the crater is enough to make it real. This theory is mostly based on the fact that, as we know, there were no other traces of Paradox Pokémon in the 200 years after the first expedition on Earth, until the professors managed to bring these creatures back to the present with a time machine. And as we know, in the books there is even a sketch of what is being called an imagined Pokemon, a Paradox Suicune or a Paradox Verizon, depending on the version that you're playing, that does not exist at all in the game right now, and which will be probably added in a future DLC. All this, coupled with the fact that Professor Sada and Turo were able to create a fully functioning AI and a time machine from nothing, in a moment where modern technology could not allow it, stating that it was only possible because of the power of the crystals, it can really make you think that there must be something more going on. To put it simple, this theory states that crystals can make all your dreams and desires come true. Easy. But I don't like this theory very much. I'm just not satisfied with this, and I'm gonna explain you why. If Paradox Pokémon actually existed during the first expedition, what was the reason why Sada and Turo had to create a time machine to bring them back? As we know, Eve didn't have a time machine at the time. And in the other case, if we say that these Pokémon never exist and were just imagined by Eve, this will mean that the time machine created by Sada and Turo is not even a time machine. It's just a giant shiny toaster that think it works, when in reality it's only their desire fueled with the power of crystals that makes everything possible. Also, I think that by believing this theory, we are discrediting Professor Sada and Turo, who are supposed to be brilliant researchers. Not only in their works, but also during the academic years they were described as very smart and talented students. So why should Game Freak put two geniuses inside a creator to do a job that basically even someone as dumb as me could do? I mean, put me inside the creator and with my imagination I can fill it with all the strangest creators that you've ever seen. Nah, I'm joking, I will just do naughty things. For these reasons, I want to give you another explanation of what really happened inside the creator. Because I believe in Sada and Turo. So what if I tell you that maybe the first expedition on Eve was very different from what we know right now? And what if I tell you that maybe the whole experience of Sada and Turo inside the creature was different too? What I think in fact is that Eve indeed reached the bottom of the crater and wrote a diary about the expedition. But I think that he only found the Herba Mystica, some signs of an ancient civilization which I will talk about in a future video, and a bunch of crystals, without understanding their powers. During the 200 years following this expedition, the research continued, till a young Professor Sada or Turo, maybe fascinated by the crystals, or maybe just for academic purposes, entered the crater and started to study these rocks. I also think that the professor slowly began to understand the power of crystals, and then realized what he could do with them, just like in the main game. But I think that 16 years, assuming that Arven was born right after Professor entered the crater and that he is 16 by the end of the game, is too little time to be able to create Terra Orbs, to build an advanced AI-powered robot and a fully functioning time machine, even with the power of crystals and all the enhanced technology at your disposal. What I think instead is that discovering and creating all these things was a work of 40 or maybe 50 years, basically the work of a lifetime. So according to my theory, one day after an entire life of working and researching inside the crater, a very old Professor Sada or Turo finally managed to bring back Paradox Pokémon, only to realize that she had no more time left, that there was still a lot of work to be done on the Paradise, and that she would probably never be able to live there with her son Arven, who was obviously an adult by now, and I really doubt he would have been happy living inside a crater full of dangerous Pokémon with a terrible mother he barely knew. Now, from what we know, the time machine can take something to a certain moment in time and bring it back. So it basically works in both ways. It can send something forward or send it backwards. We don't know if humans can use the time machine, but we know that the AI robot can. And I think that after realizing how much she sacrificed to make her dream come true, the professor decided to use the time machine to send back the AI with a bunch of Paradox Pokémon to a certain moment in the past. Of course, at the time of the first expedition of Eve. Also, I think she sent it back with a specific mission, to show the explorers some Paradox Pokémon without them knowing, prompting Eve to write about them in the book. And more importantly, to give Eve some precious information that he didn't understand, but which he recorded in his diary in the so-called Phantom Memory. In fact, as we can read in the Scarlet and Violet book, Eve says, "Strayed from the team, was later found unconscious. When I woke, I could only recall speaking with someone in an unfamiliar place, which I think was none other than the AI of Sada and Turo. I was found holding this page shown here, the handwriting is my own, but I have no memory of writing this, which I believe is the secret of the power of the crystals. And maybe the plan is set for the time machine. We could also say that the AI was the reason for the sketch artist to paint the imagined Pokemon too. Maybe somehow the AI gave the artist some hints about a Pokemon that the original professor was still trying to bring in her paradise. Or maybe it could just be a simple sketch of a non-existing Pokemon and nothing else. We will see. Then the AI, which, as you remember, is a machine fueled by the power of crystals and certainly has no aging problems, enters sleep mode, waiting for Professor Sada and Turo to arrive in the crater 200 years after. Or maybe it continued to act in the shadows, preserving the place and preventing others from discovering the secrets of Area Zero. After 200 years, a young Professor Sada or Turo read an old book filled with majestic creatures that immediately fascinated her, and read some strange notes about something she surely wasn't able to understand yet, but I like to think they looked a little familiar. And finally, the young professor enters the crater like the original one, but with some huge differences. Now she knows what she's searching for, Paradox Pokémon. She has a plan to follow, a phantom memory, and she finds a fully functioning sophisticated AI ready to help her to create a paradise to live with her newborn son Erwin. The professor starts to work like there's no tomorrow, and in less than 16 years she is able to discover terrestrial phenomenon, to create a time machine, to bring back 2 Koraidons and a lot of other Paradox Pokémon, just in time to reconnect with her son, who is certainly angry, but who deep down still loves his mama. And unfortunately, an accident happens. The professor dies trying to protect her creation, and Paradox Pokémon start spreading around Paldea. And the only one who can stop them is actually locked inside the Area Zero, and the key is outside. And that's it. Basically, in my opinion, Sada and Turo are the very reason why Paradox Pokémon are here in the present, and why the Scarlet and Violet books exist as we know them. They were not able to realize their dreams the first time. They decided to try to change the past with the time machine and nearly succeeded, but then failed again. Maybe, despite all beliefs, the crater is not a place where you can find your treasure. And this theory already gives me some ideas about what we will probably see in the future DLC. And most of all, with this answer, now I can finally sleep peacefully, I think. I really want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did, and please leave some comments if I missed something. Stay tuned for some more and see you next time. Bye!